Good afternoon, everyone. This is Yvette De Luna with Let's Talk Advocacy. This is a NAWBO Houston chapter initiative where we talk about advocacy, all the things that are working well for uh, businesses that are owned by women, the things that we need to look out for, the things that we need to change, all that good stuff. And usually what happens is that I give you an advocacy update. We usually start with the boring stuff, but today we're doing something different and we're starting with our guest. She's an amazing cardiologist and a motivator and a speaker, a keynote speaker, and she's in the leadership space. She's very well known. Welcome, Carmen Landrau. We're so happy to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here with all of you.
And let's kick off the conversation. After you're going to be with us about 20 minutes, so we value the time with you. But after we are done with your interview, I'm going to talk about a report that the EEOC released on the 12th of March, and it is about pay equity. And to no one's surprise, the report is saying that the pay gap is still very much between men and women, and then it also addresses races. So I'll talk about that later on, but I want to address the pay gap between genders. It is amazing that it is 2024, and this is pretty much a problem. This is still a thing, and it's not us being whiny. The government is saying, the EEOC is saying, in order for like Latino women, which struck me, to have the same pay as men, white men in the United States, when we'll reach the same pay from 2023, from what they earn in 2023, Latinas, we will reach that same, will be equal in October of 2024. That's how much we're behind. And it's a very interesting study because for the first time we can see it, okay, the gender gap, but then we will see it by ethnicities and race, not ethnicities, by race. And to me, it's outstanding. I am shocked at this thing that we're still talking about this, because at times you would think, maybe we're exaggerating, maybe we're making it up a little bit, not making it up as that it's not that it's not true, making it up as we're focusing on the wrong thing. I've heard people say we must focus on what's working and the things that have changed and the good things that are there out there for women, and that all that's true. But for a woman to have to wait till October to have the equal pay of a white male, it's something that we need to talk about. Although it might not be the sexiest thing we want to talk about, but there you go. I have ranted. Help me here, Karen.
What you say is actually true. You're not ranting, you're telling the truth. And it's not pretty, it's not sexy, but it's the truth. And sometimes the truth can be ugly and people don't want to hear it, but it's important that we talk about this topic because it's known that for every dollar a man makes, women make 80 cents on that dollar or less. And I say or less because it depends if, like you said, if you're a white woman versus Black or Latina or even Native American. So depending on your race and your ethnicity, those numbers are going to change, but it's going to be lower actually. So why is this important? It's important because, of course, there's no equality, there's no equity, and women actually take a brunt of most of the work, whether it's in a family, whether it's even in jobs, that also happens. Most of the work that we do is invisible. We're doing a lot of work behind the scenes, helping others, but we're not seeing actually the compensation for it. And this is necessary to happen. And also, in a civilization, in a city, in a state, anywhere you are, the people who acquire most items, the people who do most of the buying are women. And those are for
Yes.
reasons that are very valid as well. It's not that we want to spend money. It's that it's something that needs to happen. So we need to be compensated adequately.
Yeah, we're making decisions, right? We all the time. I don't know you, but I don't know one single woman, whether she works at home or outside the home. I don't know one that is like very living life very leisurely, even if with if with resources, with if they find themselves even with a lot of resources, there's a lot of work involved in the entire thing. I mean, and we're not advocating for a life without work. We are advocating for a life work, equal work is equally compensated. That's what we're saying, and it is very interesting to find ourselves here still. It is what I'm trying to say. It is pretty much revealing that it is a systemic problem. It's not us being whiny or complaining about it. There's actual data backing this issue. So tell us a little bit about how your journey as a cardiologist, and then you're shifting to, not shifting because you have always been a leader, but also becoming a keynote speaker.
I would say in addition to, more than shifting.
Okay.
I think that's the term.
Yes. Yes.
I am Puerto Rican, and I went to med school at Ponce School of Medicine in Puerto Rico. And then I came here to Houston and did my residency in internal medicine and my fellowship in cardiology. And for those who don't know, you have to be an internist before you become a subspecialist. At least in the United States, that's how you get trained. And I became a cardiologist. And after I graduated, a little bit of time after that, I decided that I wanted to be a solo cardiologist. I had been working as a staff physician for the University of Texas here in Houston. But then I decided that I wanted to do my own thing with my own clinic, help my patients my way. I believe in the doctor-patient relationship. And I was seeing some things in healthcare that, not that people were doing anything wrong, but there were some limitations there that I thought as a solo physician, as a solo cardiologist, I could probably bridge that gap a little bit better. And then a few years down the line, I realized that I wanted to do something else. And when I say something else, something different to what I was doing, because then the reality of healthcare, we all know that this hasn't been getting better. It's actually getting more difficult for both sides. Yes. So I realized that every time I was in a conference, I felt great. I felt like fish in water. This is what I like to do. And then I met a doctor who left medicine, and she became a professional speaker. And that's when all the light bulbs went off. I realized that this is something you could do as a career, because I didn't know you could be a speaker as a career. Honestly, I did not know that was something that you do. And then I started training for that. I realized that I felt great. People liked it. And one of my coaches said, every time you speak about women's empowerment, like your eyes light up. They become really bright. You're really emotional. You're passionate about this. Why don't you go down that line? I said, it really makes sense. And hindsight is 2020, always right. And when I connected the dots, I remember that every time I was in the hospital, either a nurse or a student or another resident would come to me and say, how do you do it? How are you a mom? And you have your clinic and you're doing all these things. They thought I was living the perfect life, when in reality, I was just going day by day. But as the conversation got going, I realized that they were having a lot of the struggles that I had experienced. So it was not just that one day I went to see a patient and then everything went well. And then the next day somebody's telling me, well, you're difficult, or you were too aggressive, or you need to smile more. These women were experiencing the same thing. And we all know that smiling more is not going to solve any problems.
No. I don't understand where that came from, but I guess women will be used to smile more. I don't know.
I don't know. You're supposed to be sweet, and I don't know.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it told me, this experience is what told me is, okay, there's something here that we need to address, and all these women need to be heard. These are professional women who are doing the best they can. They're super trained. They are amazing. And nowadays, studies have shown that their outcomes are better than our male counterparts. However, these women are not being heard. They're not being promoted. And many of them are leaving the field. That's
Wow.
terrible.
It
That's
is.
terrible. And the same thing as I have been doing my talks, my presentations, I presented to women engineers, women in accounting, in other fields as well. And it goes all throughout the board, all around.
No, I'll tell you, the ABA has this issue. They've been working on it, at it for a long time, because the numbers show we do leave the profession in greater numbers, like mid-career. We
Right.
just exit.
And it's not because we don't want to work, because I heard that all
No.
the time. They told me, because my first pregnancy was twins. I got pregnant with twins at the end of my fellowship. And people told me, oh, once those babies are out, you will not want to work.
Wow.
I've been training for 150 years, and now I have 2 more mouths to feed. And medical school
Yeah.
loans are not cheap. It's
No.
a lot of money that I still need to pay. So I was like, why are they telling me this? And there's this misconception that when women have children, they don't want to go to work. When in reality, what happens is that working conditions are not optimal. No
Yeah.
field, or maybe very rare, those fields that are made for women, they still do not bring working conditions that go in reality of what we go through.
Definitely, because the rules were designed by men, because at the time that the work rules were made, women did not work in the workplace, right? We were not part of the workforce. That's fairly recent. So that's why we see so many employment laws saying things like, oh, you must accommodate certain situations, but we don't need accommodations. We need equity. We don't want band-aids on these things. We just want the equity. If we can view each other as human beings, it'll get fixed.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about, you started doing the keynote speaking and leadership for women. What has been the biggest obstacle that you have surpassed in that field? Can you hear me? Yes. Maybe it's a technical glitch, I think. Is it glitchy?
I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you.
Okay.
It's kind of spotty.
Okay, maybe now. Is it better now? Let me see. Yeah. Okay. So let's wait for the connection to get restored, and we will continue talking with Carmen Landrau regarding, her journey as a motivator for women in women's spaces, women issues, as you've heard, even after successfully completing a career as a cardiologist, training and getting her degrees and her internships and her specialty down. She was still, she was told to probably, that's Carmen writing to me right now. Give me a minute. She's saying that she lost us and she's trying to reconnect to join us again. Okay, so we will wait for her. But as she, it's interesting what she's saying, after successfully finishing her training as a cardiologist, once she had babies, it seemed like it was over for her. At least some people thought that was the case after, like she said, spending a zillion years in studying to become and training to become a doctor, a cardiologist. Then, somehow people expected her to just go home and mind the babies. And those are the types of beliefs and attitudes that, for the life of me, I'm a mature woman, as you can certainly appreciate. And I am flabbergasted by the entire thing. I would not, even I was raised with the idea that, oh, yes, women, you guys can, at least my father, this is my father talking now. Yes, you can do whatever you want. You can be whatever you want. You can accomplish whatever you want in this life if you he was from the hard work kind of school of thought. So if you work hard enough, you will get everything you want in life. So, even I grew up with the idea that gender was not an obstacle. Then when I went into the workforce, it was, oh, this is an issue. Gender is an issue. But still, it's 2024. Flabbergasted by the fact that we're talking about this. And while we wait for Carmen, I'm going to talk a little bit about that report that the EEOC released on March 12th. It is the first of its kind that is released by the EEOC. And I would like I think Carmen is saying she is back. I want to talk about the results of these reports, but let's see if we can reconnect with Carmen and have her join us, because what she was saying is quite interesting as well. She has an amazing journey, and she is a very inspiring person. So yes, if we can reconnect with her, that would be amazing. But if not, we can continue talking about this report. And the report says that I'm going to read like the highlights from the data. And the first one is an overall conclusion. And it says in 2018, the national median pay band for men was one pay band higher than the median pay band for women. So 39,000 to $49,000 per year compared to 30,000 and 38,000. And in 2017, it was two pay bands higher, 39,000 to 49,000 compared to 24,000 to 30,000. So there was improvement from one year to the next, but still we can see this is a very systemic problem. Again, this is not us being, what are we going to gripe about today? This is a real systemic issue that needs addressing and fixing. It's, again, we've joined the workforce quite a bit ago, and we want this in the past. We want to talk this about. We want this to be like a memory and something in the history books. We don't want to continue working with this systemic issue. So race and ethnicity is another one of the highlights of the report. And it says that in 2018, in each race and ethnicity category, women were in a lower medium pay band than men of the same race or ethnicity, with Black or African American women and American Indian or Alaska Native women in the lowest median pay band of all groups, $19,000 to $24,000 a year. So that's like unacceptable. Those are the poverty guidelines of the US are above that. So imagine, this is what, below poverty? What do we call that? This is amazing. Then another highlight from the report is in 2018, the median pay band for men was higher than the median pay band for women in all industries, except that it was, oh, there's Carmen. I'll read this to you. I'll save this for later. Carmen, can you hear me?
I can hear,
yes.
Hear you.
Are you there?
Clear. Technology
Super.
issues.
Super. So oh, it's fine. It has its days and its moments. It's happened to me quite a bit. So you were telling us about that you started doing the not started, you realize this is another space that you were interested in growing in. And I asked you, what was one of the biggest obstacles that you have faced in that space,
Yeah,
if any?
it's no, of course there are many. I think the first one is the perception that, like you mentioned, are we whining? Are we doing something that is significant? And as a speaker, as a presenter, I have to bring the message in a way that is non-threatening. I think that's my responsibility, because sometimes we hear jokes, but honestly, those jokes are not really helping anybody. They're kind of sexist, or like you said, may seem like we're whining, or it diffuses the message. If I'm going to present something to a group, that can make a difference. It needs to be brought with data, and it also needs to be brought with some type of sensitivity and empathy, because there's people out there who really want to help. They do not necessarily know how, because they do want to, but this is something that now we're seeing more and more being spoken about. Just like you mentioned, in the old days, which are not so old, not so distant, women were staying home, they were taking care of the kids and the house, and they were doing all these things behind the scenes that nobody knew what they were doing, but they knew they were taken care of, and it was not acknowledged. Now we need to understand, and we're more vocal about, okay, we're doing all this work, we're doing all these things, we don't get recognition, we don't get the pay, we don't get promoted. So why is this discrepancy still happening nowadays? So in order to bring it, I think my responsibility is to bring it in a way that opens the conversation respectfully. And I like to say to every group when I speak, I don't do any of that male bashing, because I'm married to a man. I mean, I have 2 boys, and why would I put them down when all I want is equity, equality, and equity?
Yes, I think we are unlearning that part of the process, right? That this is not getting us far either. Just, we can definitely identify the water that we're drowning in without resorting to uh, things that will divide us further. I agree with you that there are certain individuals that simply, if they knew better, their heart is in their right place, right? So if they knew better, they would do better. So that's very important to give that benefit of the doubt. And that's something I've learned in the process as well, because I remember, let me share this real quickly. I remember this supervisor that I had that, he mentioned that if I had like cosmetic surgery for my top, that would help me in my career. That would be helpful. And it was like, I know this man was not, what he did was horrible in many, many levels, but he didn't see it. He didn't have enough information to understand what he was saying. So I took the time little by little to start, not all at once. He would not have taken in the entire. So he, after months had gone, he did apologize, but I could have gone to like a human resources type of situation and gone through that. But I knew this particular heart, and I knew he wasn't meaning that. But yes, so bridging those gaps with the empathy that you are describing is very important. So what have the biggest wins? Tell us about your biggest wins in this space.
Biggest wins is when I can always, what makes me smile when I come after a presentation and a woman comes to me afterwards, or even email, or they communicate somehow, and they're like, this part that you said resonates with me. Or like a younger lady, she told me that after my talk, maybe a couple of days later, she went to a bank and she was doing some transaction. And the gentleman that's taking care of her at the moment, he says, well, why are you so young and pretty and you're not married? The typical questions. And who's going to help you manage all this money? I said, well, I can manage it very well by myself. And she said, after I heard your talk, it gave me the strength to say those words. And that's very insightful for me. It's very satisfying because I know that I'm making a difference. I know that these women who are trying to do their best, let me tell you, we all go to school. We do everything that everybody else is doing, and we put a lot more effort because we want to be recognized. So why are we not being seen as individuals who are fully capable and independent and can do great things? Well, just the fact that one person told me, because of what you said, I made this change. Sometimes that's all I need.
That is amazing. Congratulations, Karen, because yes, the work that you do, I mean, as a cardiologist, of course, that's a given, but, just coming into the leadership space with your experience and, your concern for empowering women and your passion for empowering women, that that is amazing, and we thank you. And you do it across the board, right? You are doing this for all sorts of communities and groups, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. If usually there's a group of women, but I've had mixed groups as well, because like I said, there's men who want to learn, they want to do it the right way, but they don't know how. So they also bring themselves to the group, and they're very open to making changes and helping other women move forward as well. So yeah, all across the board.
Excellent. And where can the people that want to follow you and hear your wisdom and the things that you share, where can they find you?
I'm on social media. You can find me on LinkedIn. My handle is Dr. Landrau, or you can go through my website, drlandrau.com. It's just spelled just like my last name, drlandrau.com. And shoot me a message, and we'll be talking, definitely.
Thank you so much, Carmen. I know you have to leave, and that you gave us a couple of more minutes because of the technical glitch, but thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, I will continue now with the report and with my rant today. Bye. So that was Carmen Landrau. She's amazing. Go follow her. Make sure to follow her. Anyway, so I was saying that this EEOC report on salary is like a first of its kind, because it's going not only into the gender divide, it's also going into the race divide. And as I was just reading to you guys, even so, when we divide the groups by race, we find that even as even in those divisions, women fare below the men in each of those categories. So it is very telling. The last highlight I want to leave you with is that the highlight that is done by industries. It says that in 2018, the median pay band for men was higher than the median pay band for women in all industries, except that it was the same in accommodation and food services. Accommodation and food services. That was the exception. In that industry, both men and women were in the lowest median pay band. So everyone is doing $19,000 and under. So that's like, again, the poverty guideline starts at 23. So this is what is this even? We don't even have a name for below poverty. We just have the description, below poverty. So in 2017, men and women were in the same median pay band in only one other industry: mining, quarrying, and oil and gas extraction. And that's quite relevant for Houston and Texas, right? So this report is available. If you type EEOC salary report, you'll find it rather quickly, and I invite you to look into it because it's very telling. It's really worse than what we thought it was, but it is important to know that, so we know what needs fixing, what we need to do to get this going and make it better finally. So with that, that's all we have for today, and I thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed our guest, Carmen Landrau. We will see you next month.